Rain fell heavily that night. We arrived at the scene, pulled up in front of the tunnel, and I stopped the car. The atmosphere felt strange, perhaps because of the area directly in front of us, which was known as a scary place. After a short break, we began to head slowly into the tunnel. It was our first time doing anything like this, so we were oddly excited. Although we knew better, we grinned like children at an amusement park anyway. The place wasn't that old, but no cars came towards us from the opposite side. Still, we proceeded extremely slowly and waited with bated breath for something to happen. We reached the other end of the tunnel without fanfare. My friends in the back who were watching the tunnel walls remarked that they saw nothing out of the ordinary either. One friend proposed that we should try again, and everyone was in agreement. We did a U-turn and went back into the tunnel. But again, nothing happened. No matter how many times we drove through, nothing happened. Disappointed, and perhaps with too much free time on our hands, we kept trying, but the results remained the same. The rainfall seemed to grow heavier, loudly falling on the roof of the car. After 3 or 4 attempts at driving through the tunnel, finally one of the guys said, "Hey, let's go home." Perhaps he was just bored because nothing was happening, but there was something strange about his voice. I stopped the car as the tunnel exit came into view and turned around. His shoulders were trembling like he was cold. Our other friend looked at him blankly. "What's wrong? Did you see something?" I asked. "Let's just get out of here," he replied. Did he really see something? Both excited and worried, my heart began beating faster. The rain fell even harder, beating loudly on the car's bonnet. I decided that, first things first, we should leave the tunnel and find somewhere quiet to gather our thoughts. We found a family restaurant on the highway and stopped to go inside. It was nearly summer, and as we stepped in, our friend finally stopped shaking and calmed down. "You all right now? What did you see?" I asked. "Didn't you hear it?" He looked at us dubiously. Did he hear something supernatural? A voice? I didn't hear anything. Our other friend also looked confused. "No, I didn't," I said. "I mean, I was driving, and the rain was pretty loud, so..." "So you did hear it?" he suddenly screamed, surprising me. It was late, and there was barely anyone in the restaurant, but all the staff turned to look at us. Still, I couldn't understand what he was saying. "Hear what? Speak clearly." Embarrassed and irritated, I spoke to him a little more strongly than I intended. After a short, heavy silence, he finally spoke. "The rain! The sound of the rain! We were inside the tunnel the whole time, so how was the rain able to hit the roof?" Hey guys, I'm your host, Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to another episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. We are edging ever closer to our goal of longer Kowabana episodes for all. If you'd like to help support this show, get longer episodes for everybody, as well as ad-free early access and over 25 bonus episodes for yourself right now, head over to patreon.com/TaraADevlin. We're so close now, and every bit of support helps keep this show going. Next week is our 50th episode, which still blows my mind. I had no idea how big this show would become when I started, And I'm thankful that all of you enjoy this show so much that we've been able to reach our 50th episode. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. This week, we're looking at one of my favorite genres within Japanese horror, haunted places. This next story is about a university student who was working part-time as a nighttime security guard. As you might expect, things soon start to go wrong, but when the truth comes out, it's even more horrifying than he could ever have imagined. Find out what happens in I Shouldn't Have Brought Him Along. This story takes place when I was working part-time as a security guard when I was in university. It was a 7-story rental building, and the security office was on the first floor, facing the front entrance. The system was set up so that before the elevator, on each floor there was a security camera, and those were all monitored in the security room downstairs. My job consisted mostly of watching the monitors, and occasionally patrolling around each floor. One night, I was working with A-san, who's in his 30s. I finished patrolling at 1 a.m. and returned to the security office. A-san was staring at the monitors. The monitor for the 4th floor's gone completely black. Maybe the lights in front of the elevator cut out, he said. So it has. I didn't see the lights out on any floors though, I replied. The lights in the stores were off at night, but so we could see things, there were lights in front of the elevators. I'll go have a look, A-san said and left the room. I found it strange, but didn't think much more of it. I sat down and started writing in the daily records. When I was done, I looked over at the monitors. The 4th floor was pitch black. It wasn't like the lights had blown, it was more like the camera itself was broken. I left as well to inform A-san of my suspicions. When I arrived at the 4th floor, the light in front of the elevators was on. So it really was the camera, I thought, and looked around, but A-san wasn't there. I called out for him and went down the stairs to the emergency door, but he wasn't anywhere to be seen. All of the stores were locked, so he couldn't have gone in any. How odd, I thought, and took the elevator back down to the 1st floor. A-san was already back in the security office. The lights on the 4th floor were still working. The camera's broken. Where did you go? He said. I went to the 4th floor to tell you that. Where did you go? I replied. My bad. We need the model number of the camera to get it fixed, so could you go have a look? He asked. Sure, I replied. I left and pressed the button for the 4th floor. Just before the door was about to close, I suddenly put my hand out and ran from the elevator. The camera was on the wall near the roof, so I'd need a ladder. I returned to the security office to grab it. A-san wasn't there. I exited the room again, wondering what the hell I was going to do with him, when suddenly I realized. When I was looking for him on the 4th floor, why didn't we run into each other? There was only one elevator in the entire building. There were emergency stairs on the outside, but the doors were locked from the inside, so there was no way he could open them from outside. My suspicions soon changed to fear. Holding the ladder, I froze when I suddenly heard footsteps outside the security office. I quickly locked the door. It rattled. I'm sorry, but A-san, is that you? I screamed. More rattling. I'm sorry, A-san? A-san, is that you? Answer me. even more rattling. It wasn't Asan. Shit, what was I gonna do? The door strained with each impact, perhaps from being kicked. I pressed my weight against it. I glanced over at the monitors. 1, 4, and 7 were all completely black. Shit. Nearly in tears, I pressed against the door even harder, preparing for this impact to be the one that breaks it. Even if I called the police, they wouldn't be in time. All I could do was run. There was a small window near the roof to let light in. If I climbed up on a desk, I could probably get out. I bolted from the door, jumped on the desk, and then opened the window. But something was waiting on the other side. A woman, her face covered in blood. Her eyes were pointed in odd directions and bulging out of the sockets. I couldn't tell if she was floating on the other side or standing somewhere nearby. Black spots increased before my eyes, and then my vision faded. I passed out. I heard a voice calling my name in the distance. When I woke up, I was on the floor of the security office. It was B-san and C-san from the day shift, and C-san was looking down at me. "Hey, are you okay?" B-san said. "What's wrong? What happened?" "Do you want us to call an ambulance?" C-san asked. "No, I'm fine. I'm sorry," I said. I listened to them tell me what happened through the haze of my mind. When they arrived for work that morning, the front door was locked, so they used the key to get in and found the security office door shut. They found that suspicious, so again they used the key to get in and found me passed out on top of the desk. "Where's A? Where'd he go?" B-san asked. At those words, I came back to my senses and explained everything. I didn't know whether it was A-san on the other side, so I couldn't open the door. "If you didn't know, couldn't you have just looked at the monitors?" C-san said. I looked over at them, and they were all working again. That wasn't good. The monitors for the 1st, 4th, and 7th floors most definitely shouldn't have been working. "I'm sorry, but could you rewind the monitors for me?" I asked. Watching them as they rewound, I waited for the screens to turn black. "Stop," B-san said. "Hey, isn't that A-san?" No doubt about it. The person knocking on the other side of the security office door was A-san. I asked him over and over," I said. "Is that you, A-san?" But he didn't answer me. "But why didn't A just unlock it? He has a key, right?" B-san replied. "Hey, what the hell is that?" C-san said, pointing to the monitor. A shadow was making its way down the hall from the emergency exit door towards A-san. When it reached him and stood beneath the light, we could see that it was a woman. And yet, her neck, hands, and feet were all pointed in impossible directions. That was the woman I saw. A-san hadn't noticed her at all and kept banging on the door. The woman embraced him, like climbing onto his back, and then they disappeared. "She took him with her," B-san said. "Hey, what the fuck? What are we gonna do? Call the police?" C-san said. "Sorry, but could you rewind the monitors back to 1 a.m? I asked. There was something I had to check. The monitors showed each floor at 1 a.m. They showed me on patrol and then returning to the security office. Strange. The 4th floor was perfectly visible. A short while after, A-san left the security office. That was when he went to visit the 4th floor. He got on the elevator, and the doors closed. When they opened on the 4th floor, A-san stepped out, along with that woman. A-san looked up at the lights and then the camera. She was behind him. She was on his back. A-san didn't notice? He got back in the elevator, the woman with him. He didn't appear on the monitor for the 1st floor, however, but for some reason, he went to the 7th floor instead. This time, something was very clearly wrong. He stumbled about, the woman on his back, and made his way towards the emergency exit. He unlocked the door and stepped outside, with the woman still on his back. That all took place when I was on the 4th floor. I couldn't find A-san, so I returned to the security office. So, when I spoke to A-san after that, who was it really? I exited the security office again, got on the elevator, panicked and ran out, then returned to the security office to grab the ladder. A short while later, A-san appeared near the emergency exit on the 1st floor, stumbling around. If he couldn't open the door from the outside, how did he get in? When he reached the security office, he started desperately banging on the door. It looked like he was trying to get help from something chasing him. "Hey, I'm gonna go check the emergency stairs," B-san said. The 3 of us opened the door on the 1st floor and went outside, but A-san wasn't there. "I'm going up to the 7th floor," B-san said. We all ran upstairs, but then B-san suddenly stopped by the 4th floor and looked down. Then he pointed. We found A-san. He was lying on the section sticking out from the 2nd floor. The police came out to investigate. They suspected he fell over the 7th floor railing and found his finger and shoe prints there. I explained what happened while showing them the monitors, but they seemed to want to treat it as a suicide. Don't you think that the woman pushed him over?" I said. "Maybe he couldn't see her." "Ah, that. It's rare to see something like this caught so clearly. Her grudge must have been especially strong. But clearly she's not alive, right? It's not like we can arrest her," they answered. By the time the police let me go, the guy for the night shift was coming in. After handing everything over, B-san and I left the building together. "I'm sorry to ask you when you're no doubt exhausted, but do you think you could come with me for a minute?" he asked. "Sure," I replied. We stopped by a nearby pub and after a quick drink, B-san started talking. Apparently, A-san and B-san had previously worked in this very same building before our current security company. Their company's office was on the 4th floor. One morning when B-san was going to work, he found A-san arguing with another employee in the hot water room. A-san was married, but apparently he was cheating with this woman. When she saw B-san's face, she ran out of the room. During the morning meeting, she was nowhere to be seen, and because other people had seen her that same morning, they found it odd. Everyone went out to find her. They found her on that same part sticking out from the 2nd floor where we discovered A-san. She had jumped from the 7th floor. A short while later, A-san's wife died in a car accident. Nobody said anything, but They all suspected it was that woman's grudge. After that, the company went bankrupt, and B-san heard about the security company that worked in the same building, so he asked A-san to come with him, and they both became security guards. B-san stopped to take a break. He blamed himself for what happened. "If I hadn't asked him to join me, he wouldn't have died," he said. "Don't say such a thing. If that's true, then that means I let him die when he was desperately trying to get my help as well," I replied. "No, you did the right thing by not opening the door. You saw the monitor, right? That guy on the other side wasn't alive. If you had opened it, she would have taken you as well." Chills ran down my spine. B-san sighed deeply and then started talking again. Even so, her hatred was terrifying. She killed A's wife, and then killed him in the exact same way she died. Even then, she wasn't satisfied and continued to chase his spirit as he tried to escape. I really shouldn't have brought him with me. Now he's probably going to bear a grudge against me. I soon quit that job. B-san said that he was also going to quit soon, but I don't know what happened after that. A while after everything calmed down, I tried phoning B-san, but it said the number wasn't in use. I hope he's okay. Our last story for this week features a man who, as a kid, had nothing to fear. Many of his family members were able to see spirits, and he was often told that a particularly strong guardian spirit was watching over him. This often led to him pushing his limits, but this time he might have pushed too far. Find out what happens in Midnight Shinigami. I don't know whether it's our family line or our lineage, but generation after generation, people are born into our family with a strong ability to sense the supernatural. That's what I'm going to tell you about today. I was in high school at the time. Now I'm your regular hardworking businessman in a suit with a leather briefcase, but at the time I was pretty rough around the edges. Embarrassingly, I used to get up to a lot of mischief at night and ride around on my bike. Embarrassingly, the cops took me under their care multiple times. One day, I was chatting with my buddy about visiting a famous ghost spot in Hiroshima. I wasn't afraid of anything, so we all went together to put ourselves to the test. It was around 1 a.m. when we arrived. Everyone was acting scared, but I wasn't at all. I mean, like I explained earlier, the people in my family always had strong ties to the supernatural, and I had heard that I had a guardian spirit watching over me. Not only that, but this guardian spirit was particularly strong, so I wasn't scared in the slightest. Nothing ended up happening. It was so dull that we went around to several other ghost spots around town, but still nothing happened. We all went our separate ways, and before I knew it, it was morning. I went to school and spoke to my friends from the ghost hunting trip the night before. It turned out to be the quiet before the storm. It happened that very same day. At the time, I shared bunk beds with my brother, him on top and me below. It must have been around 2 a.m. Suddenly, I heard this loud piercing sound in my ear, and my body froze. I couldn't move anything but my eyes. Most people would probably get scared and struggle, but I wasn't afraid of anything. Ah, sleep paralysis, huh? I feel like this has happened to me before, but there's a perfectly good scientific explanation for it, I thought. I didn't bother to struggle and just waited for it to pass. But then I noticed something strange. No matter how long I waited, nothing changed, and the temperature in the room began to drop. It wasn't cold like winter, but like the chill was in my bones. Instinctively, it set me on alert, and I knew that it wasn't like anything I'd ever run into until that point. While mild panic was settling in, someone appeared at the door. The door wasn't open, so it clearly wasn't my parents. When I looked over, I saw 4 people in white clothing wearing masks. They were holding large sickles, like you might see in a comic book. The mask on the left was a Hanya mask, followed by an old man, a plain woman, and then a Tengu. They approached me silently, not even an audible footstep. One of them said something to me. I didn't know which, but one of them was definitely saying something. Honestly, I was so scared and forlorn that I couldn't understand what they were saying. It sounded like the spirit, the protector, but I couldn't understand it. However, the last thing they said was perfectly clear. There won't be a next time. At that, they left the room. The paralysis holding me broke, and I was able to move again. There won't be a next time. Goosebumps broke out all over my body for the next few minutes. Honestly, at that moment, I was prepared to disappear from this world. You often hear people talking about the turning point of their lives. Well, that was mine. A few days later, I was thinking about who those 4 people in the white clothes could have been. At first, I thought they might have been evil spirits that followed me home from the ghost spots. But now, I think they might have been guardian spirits. Because they had protected me from evil, I put myself to the test that day. Nothing happened, but when they saw how I was acting, perhaps they came that night to warn me. That made the most sense. If I was stupid and recklessly visited another ghost spot after that, I wouldn't get another chance. There's more to this story though. One of my colleagues, T-san, said he had the same experience that I did, right after visiting a ghost spot with his older brother. It was a different place to the one I visited, but it was a pretty famous ghost spot nevertheless. The next day, he dreamt about beasts wearing masks, he said. "They've done well to protect us for this long, huh?" I said. He immediately asked me why I'd say such a thing. Then he hit me with the truth. His older brother died that very same night the beasts in the masks came to visit him. Once more, from that moment on, I decided to live the most righteous life I could. Don't forget, you can also join our newsletter at kowabana.net/newsletter. Each Sunday we send out the latest Japanese horror news, creepypastas, urban legends, special offers, and more. Our next episode is also the Big 50, so you don't want to miss it. And if you want even more episodes right now, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.